Greetings. I'd like to welcome you to another edition of Forever Young, where we believe that age is nothing but a number. I'm one of your hosts, Sharon Mitchell. I'll be joined shortly by our other co-host, Ms. Jean Hendricks, and absent today is David Linton. So for today, we'd like to continue our conversation that we had in our previous episode, talking about ways that you can get help. We talked with some members of a group called Celebrate Recovery, which is a Christ-centered 12-step recovery program for anyone struggling with hurt, pain, or addiction of any kind. Celebrate Recovery is a safe place to find community and freedom from the issues that are controlling your life. And we're going to continue to meet our guests who came the last segment. And if you missed this segment, it was a wonderful segment. We went to church a little bit. We talked about the organization, and we talked about ways that your life can actually be transformed by participating in Celebrate Recovery. But before I get to our guests, I'd like to introduce our co-host, Ms. Jean Hendricks, who will share some words of wisdom and nuggets for us. Ms. Jean, welcome again.
Yes, Dr. Mitchell, thank you as always. I am so delighted to share this post with you. Today's reading, I'd like to say this. Hope returns when I remember this one thing. The Lord's unfailing love and mercy will continue. Fresh as the morning, as sure as the sunrise, the Lord is all I have, and so in him I put my hope. When you feel like quitting, think about why you started. Back to you, Dr. Mitchell.
Thank you, Ms. Jean. You always share words of wisdom with us, and certainly that will be something that we hope our audience will feel to the heart. And it is so appropriate for today's segment of Celebrate Recovery. As I indicated, we have three guests today who are members of Celebrate Recovery. We have Ms. Sabrina Stolze, Ms. Cheryl Luke, and our very own minister in training, Ms. Betty Williams. I'd like to just do a summary overview of each of them because we introduced them in our last segment, and we want to spend some time really talking about other aspects of Celebrate Recovery for this particular portion. Ms. Sabrina is the U.S. State Representative Trainer for Celebrate Recovery. She's a mother, grandmother, been married for over 34 years, has been a training coach, and has worked as a ministry leader at her local Celebrate Recovery chapter. We also have joining her from Celebrate Recovery, Ms. Cheryl Luke, who is the founder of Mosaic Life Network. She's a speaker, a writer, podcast host, and a life coach. And as the director of Celebrate Recovery Cultural Communities, she has the privilege of ensuring churches, along with people of color, that they know that Celebrate Recovery is a safe environment to work through the pain of their past and receive healing from life's hurts, hang-ups, habits, and addictions. And last but not least is our very own Ms. Betty Williams, who's a minister in training at House of Hope, and who has actually founded our chapter at House of Hope for Celebrate Recovery. We had church with Ms. Betty in the last segment. We almost had to shut down our programming with our questions because just to hear her story of how God has transformed her and how he used this organization will speak to many of you as it spoke to us. And so Ms. Betty Williams is also a professional registered nurse. She's a local Atlantean. She's born in Atlanta. She's a mother, a mother and a grandmother. And she has overcome a 40-year addiction to drugs and alcohol. And certainly you'll have an opportunity to meet all of them. And we like to say, as we do at House of Hope Atlanta, welcome once again, ladies, to House of Hope Forever Young. You're in good hands with the saints who are a little more seasoned, and they're over the age of 50, but nevertheless living life to its fullest. And so I'd like to welcome you on behalf of our team. And we'd like to go ahead and start our questions. Ms. Betty, Ms. Jean, we're going to start with you. If you'll start with our questions for our guests.
Okay, this question is going to be directed to Sabrina. Can you share the principles from the Beatitudes that Celebrate Recovery is founded upon?
Absolutely. These are the Beatitudes based on the Beatitudes of Jesus Christ with our 12 steps and our 8 principles. There is a thought, and then there is always a scripture that goes along with that. So I'll read through all of them. The principles are basically, they're an acrostic that spell recovery. And so I'll read each of the principles and then the coinciding scriptures with them. So R is realize I'm not God. I admit that I'm powerless to control my tendency to do the wrong thing and that my life is unmanageable. Happy are those who know that they are spiritually poor. Matthew 5:3. E, earnestly believe that God exists, that I matter to him, and that he has the power to help me recover. Happy are those who mourn, for they shall be comforted. Matthew 5:4. Consciously choose to commit all my life and will to Christ's care and control. That's C, I'm sorry. Happy are the meek. Matthew 5:5. O, openly examine and confess my faults to myself, to God, and to someone I trust. Happy are the pure in heart. Matthew 5:8. B, voluntarily submit to any and all changes God wants to make in my life and humbly ask him to remove my character defects. Happy are those whose greatest desire is to do what God requires. Matthew 5:6. About E, evaluate all my relationships, offer forgiveness to those who have hurt me, and make amends for harm I've done to others when possible, except when to do so would harm them or others. Happy are the merciful. Matthew 5:7. Happy are the peacemakers. Matthew 5:9. R, reserve a daily time with God for self-examination, Bible reading, and prayer in order to know God and his will for my life and to gain the power to follow his will. And Y, yield myself to God to be used to bring this good news to others, both by my example and my words. Happy are those who are persecuted because they do what God requires. Matthew 5:10.
Wow.
Thank you. Very good. Very good. Awesome.
So, Sabrina, why did they choose the 12 Beatitudes? What's the significance of those for Celebrate Recovery?
So what's interesting is when Pastor Rick Warren at Saddleback was working with John Baker to develop curriculum for the program, the 12 steps were part of that, which had been around for a very long time already. And there were scriptures that they found, excuse me, that coincided with those as well. But as Pastor Warren was studying, recovery and how that would relate to the Bible and the connections that are made, he kind of saw that in the Beatitudes, that the steps kind of fell in line with the Beatitudes, actually in order. And so one of the things that when the principles are written out and the scriptures that go along with them, it also tells you which step that coincides with. So R, realize I'm not God, coincides with step 1 in the 12 steps. And so it kind of goes along that way. And so you see that the Beatitudes really fell in place with those steps and God just making that connection perfectly.
Wow. So do you recite them at each meeting? Are you reciting them at each meeting? Okay.
We do it at every, every 12 step and not every open chair group, I'm sorry, at every 12 step group we do that. And then at every large group meeting, which starts off our general meeting night, we do one of the steps or the principles. And so we will read that. People will go up. One of them will read the actual principle or the step, and the other one will read the scripture, or sometimes the audience will join in with that. So every week we hear one of them in large group, and every week in a step study, which is on a different night of the week, we also read through them.
Okay. Thank you. Excellent. Ms. Jean, you had a question?
Yes. What message would you leave with our viewers regarding your organization, Sabrina?
Just that it is for everyone. It's something that we talked about in a little bit in the last segment, that this is just generally, this is a sanctification program, which is just, being changed to be more Christ-like in our life. We're told in the Bible that we're sanctified at the time of salvation. We are being sanctified throughout our life, and we will be fully sanctified when we meet Jesus face to face. All this is a way to be sanctified. We talked about in the last session how transforming this program is, and it's because Jesus Christ is at the center and the power that he brings. These are just very specific tools. I've been a Christian since I was 12, a disciple since I was 30, and nothing transformed me or changed me like this program. And it wasn't it's not because it's the program, it's because of Jesus' power and these tools being very specific, a very specific path to follow in order to have healing and to have restoration from the hurts that all of the years prior had interfered with my spiritual growth and my ability to continue to grow. It was just blocked. Sober Recovery just gave me tools for sanctification to explode in my life and to transform me.
Looking at those areas of how you became who you became, and then looking at what were all the influxes that interfered with all of the stuff. We don't like to do that. That's too much work, Selena. Sometimes you have to take it in small pieces, in small fragments. You can't just run through it and say, okay, let's merrily do this work. It'll be fun. No, it's not fun work. It's painful. But we have to do it to get through it.
Why do you think these men don't want to get married?
It really depends on an individual's why for getting married. A lot of the things that make a man good are kind of intangible, and his credit score shouldn't be the metric for what makes him good.
It's when someone is not involved in a church, and how would they find out about this program?
That's a great question, because that is one of the things that I mentioned in the last segment, was that not enough people know about Celebrate Recovery. And, you know, that is part of our goal and our vision moving into this next era, if you will, or season in Celebrate Recovery, is that this has been a grassroots organization from the beginning, with state reps that are volunteers kind of spreading the word. And they are all state reps have gone through Celebrate Recovery themselves. And so they're sharing in their local communities. They're getting out into their local communities and letting people know about Celebrate Recovery. But we have now, with the shift into COVID and what that meant for us as a ministry, we have started taking steps to let the general public know more about it, because we have believers and non-believers that come into our ministry for healing and for recovery, and so we do want to get the word out there. Last year, we did an online summit for the first time ever, and we had 15,000 people around the world attend that, and that was kind of the beginning of us trying to get the word out in a different way, not just to local churches, but to anyone and everyone, and let them know that CR is for them.
Now, one more question to me. Excuse me. Now, I know about your organization. I'm addicted, but I have no transportation. How do I get there? I want to get there, but I have no way of getting there. What do I do?
Well, there's a few things. Prior to COVID, so there's kind of two different time periods, but prior to COVID, it just depended on that local ministry. Since Celebrate Recovery is a ministry of the local church, and that program gets brought into a local church, some CRs have things where they will actually best people in and bring them to the ministry. Locally at my CR, if we have someone reach out that doesn't have a way to get there, our ministry leader will generally reach out to our leaders and say, we have someone that wants to attend. can anyone give them a ride? And so it's really
Very
kind of
good.
done based on the local
Excellent.
church and what they can offer and do. Now,
Very good. Excellent.
because of COVID, we also have what are called CRCR groups, which are online versions of our open share groups specifically, or step study groups. And so more people have been able to get recovery than ever before because of those. And so that's another option for those who just can't get there.
Right. Good. Very good. Thank you.
Yeah, that was good. You really reflected on community. So I want to shift to Cheryl regarding community. So Cheryl, you're the director of cultural communities. Can you tell a little bit about that? You discussed it a little bit the last segment.
Mhm.
Can you share a little bit about that in terms of our communities of color? How are we doing with them?
Yes, before I do that, I'd also like to mention that you can go to www.celebraterecovery.com, and there's a little tab that you can go to find a group in your area and find a Celebrate Recovery that you can attend in your area. But in terms of what I do in my role with Celebrate Recovery, I am responsible for ensuring that people of color, Black, Latina, Latino, Indigenous, AAPI, American, Asian, and Pacific Islander, and other people of color know that Celebrate Recovery is a ministry for them. If pre-COVID, I would say as well, if you would walk into a large conference that Celebrate Recovery hosted, you would generally see a sea of white people, and that is not the heart of our founders, Pastors John and Cheryl Baker, whom Sabrina talked about earlier. And currently Johnny and Jenny Baker, that's not their heart. Their heart is that all communities know that Celebrate Recovery is a ministry of freedom for them. And so my role is to ensure that people of color know that Celebrate Recovery is a place where they can find freedom for themselves. And currently what I'm responsible for doing is hosting step studies online. And since COVID happened and we've had that massive pandemic, we went from having Celebrate Recovery take place in churches to online environments. And we have currently about 10 groups that are meeting right now, men and women of color from everywhere in the United States, led specifically by people of color. And we're seeing some absolutely phenomenal results in terms of healing from addictions, from racial trauma, from childhood abuse. And what I'm finding is people are saying things in those groups because they're led by people of color and that there are only people of color in those groups. They have the freedom to share some of their life experiences without having to edit. And it is not something that we're going to do long term, but it's what's needed now because of the state of our nation. And it is a beautiful, beautiful experience.
Wonderful, wonderful.
Thank you, Cheryl.
Every discipline starts with creating a habit. Find a plan that works for you. I know you can put a reminder in your phone, call so-and-so in 30 days. You can't use the excuse that, I'm an introvert or I'm an introvert. You know, stuff people like to say. Nah, if you're not outgoing, right, you better get going because that's the only way networking works.
Hey, let's check out this park. Oh, wow, that's really cool. To find a great local park or forest near you, go to discovertheforest.org.
What's up, y'all? It's your boy Jermaine Dolly, Mr. Hello Dolly himself, and guess what? You're tuned in to Tea and Worship with my homies, Mignon and Corey. Keep it out, y'all.
Hey y'all, it's Candy West, and you're watching Tea and Worship with Mignon and Corey.
It's your boy James Fortune, and you are watching my favorite news show, Tea and Worship, with my sis Mignon and Corey.
I had a follow-up question for you. When you talked about people of color, I kind of talked and laughed a little bit about myself when we talk about addictions. I shared that I may consider myself a little bit overweight, but I don't know that I feel that I'm addicted. So can you tell me how food can actually be an addiction for those of us who think that we're just pleasantly plump and just feel good?
Yes. and you will always be pleasant. You will always be pleasant. Yeah, and I will share from my own experience actually, because when I took over Celebrate Recovery, I mentioned that I happened to get involved in CR because my pastor asked me to take over the ministry, and my response to myself was, I'm going to help these people find freedom. And I decided to lead a 12-step because we needed to start some groups and I didn't have the leaders. And so I did my homework. I worked with our state rep and I started a 12-step. And Sabrina read the principles. And principle 1, I want to read it to you. It says, realize I am not God. I admit that I am powerless to control my tendency to do the wrong thing and that my life is unmanageable. And the step 1 that goes with that is we admitted we were powerless over our addictions and compulsive behaviors, that our lives had become unmanageable. And there are 2 phrases in there that captured my attention. One was realize I am not God. And the second one was I admitted that I was powerless over my compulsive behaviors. And when I was working that first step, I was doing the homework for that first step, and I realized number 1, I'm controlling. I have an issue with control. But number 2, I have a food addiction. I have an addiction to food. When I celebrate, I eat. When I'm sad, I eat. If I'm stressed, I'm going to go find some French fries. If I'm bored, I'm going to go find some French fries. Mm-hmm. I can cook. You know what? I'm going to cook a meal. I love to invite people over. I'm going to make a spread, Sunday dinner in our culture. Anybody know about Sunday dinner?
Yes, ma'am.
So I along with that, I had a ton of issues that I had to face through my life. And to cope with those challenges of life, I would eat. And so I realized that moment, not only am I controlling, but I have a food addiction and I have got to do something about this. And the funny thing about that is it took me forever. I was fine to say that I was controlling. It took me forever to admit out loud, even though I knew it, that I had an issue with food. And it was obvious that I did, but to say it was it. And then here's the other thing. When I said it, it felt like a weight had been lifted off of me, because we are as sick as our secrets.
Wow.
We're sick as our secrets. And when we expose those secrets, it takes the sting and the strength of that secret away. And so to have worked on food addiction and know that today food does not have a grip on me. It doesn't have a hold on me. I don't think about it all day. I don't think about what I'm going to cook. I don't think about what I'm going to eat unless I'm meal prepping. It's freedom. It's a freedom I can't remember how long I was obsessed by food. Doesn't happen anymore.
Wow. That's amazing, because when we think of addictions, we don't think of food. We
don't think
call
of
everything else. Yeah, food is not one of those. As you say, it's apparent that we've got some issues, with our weight, our health issues.
Yes.
They're all related to our food, and we don't admit that there's an issue.
I would also say that food is one of the things that we have to have in order to survive. So finding that balance between your addiction and survival or living is a balance. It's a balance.
Yes. So, Miss Betty, we've got a few minutes left, and as usual, this program, we start talking and we look up and the time is far spent. Yeah, so we like to at least ask you a few questions before we wrap up. I want to first ask you, when did you start the Celebrate Recovery chapter at House of Hope Atlanta?
We started training for the excuse me, I'm sorry. We started facilitators training in April of 2019, and our first Celebrate Recovery meeting was September the 9th of 2019. So we've been going strong since then, but since the pandemic, we started doing Zoom calls, and we do those every Thursday night at 6:45 via Zoom. So we've kept going, and people have really been blessed with the meetings, even on Zoom, that they had a place that they could talk about what was going on with them with Zoom. I mean, with the COVID situation, that they were able to find a haven, so to speak, and find support for the situations that they were facing with the COVID. So we're continuing.
Thank you, Miss Betty. Miss Jean, you had another question for Miss Betty?
Well, I was going to ask her, can she give us the number for the Zoom call, or we have to register or something of that type, Betty?
Well, I need for you to notify me, email me, and I will give you a call, because I have to go through the guidelines that Sabrina mentioned earlier. And the main two guidelines that we want to cover when I contact you is that you must stay on camera and nobody can be in the room, because we want to maintain that anonymity and confidentiality for anybody. Since it's virtual, we don't want people just walking in and hearing what other people are sharing, and take it in. So.
Well, and also, who are the participants of Celebrate Recovery at House of Hope?
Everybody, anybody. It's open to everybody, and it's whatever issue you feel you're having. I've had people that started that didn't think they had any issue, like Cheryl. They thought they came to help us get this program started, and guess what? They realized they were codependent. So it's open for everybody, and if you're not sure it's for you, just stop in and do a couple of meetings. I'm sure you can find yourself somewhere in there.
Okay.
If you don't think it's for you, check if you're breathing, right?
Yes, yes.
And I also like to say that, yes, I had a 40-year addiction, but, for me, Celebrate Recovery has helped me peel those layers of the hurt and pain that I've endured all my life, that I used drugs to cover up. I've used codependency to cover up. I've used overeating to cover up. And like I said earlier, all of those were just to cover up the fact that I didn't have a relationship with God. And I didn't find that freedom and didn't find the need to let go of those vices until I got that relationship with God. So for me, Celebrate is really important for me, and I think for anybody, because it can help you peel those layers of onion and truly set you free and let go of that shame and doubt of who you are, because you come to know that you're a child of God. And with God, anything is possible, and He's going to love you and take you just where you are. So.
Very good. Thank you so much, Betty. That was great. Back to you, Dr. Mitchell. Is she frozen? Okay, I think Dr. Mitchell is frozen. Back to you, Dr. Mitchell. What? Cheryl, I'll ask you another. Okay, I think she's back now. Are you back, Dr. Mitchell? What, Cheryl, do you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. What message would you like to leave with our viewers regarding your organization today?
I would like to talk to specifically people of color, and I would like to speak to the issue of the trauma that we have experienced over over our lifetime, but I would say in the last 15, 18 months, almost 2 years. And that is, I would gladly say and confidently say that most of us have been affected in one way or another. And it's important that we have a place to work through the pain of that trauma, the pain of our past. When I introduce myself in Celebrate Recovery, I say that my name is Cheryl. I'm a grateful believer in Jesus Christ. I'm overcoming food issues, control, and I'm healing from racial trauma. And to be able to say that I'm healing from racial trauma is so powerful for me. Number one, I didn't realize how impacted I was by what has happened to me as a Black individual, and seeing all of the things that happened in 2020, and just having the space to unpack that and share that with a group of people of color who can relate to me and I don't have to edit my conversation is a freedom that I don't think I've ever experienced before. And so if you have experienced any amount of racial trauma, I want you to know that there's a space, a seat, and a place and an environment of safety for you through Celebrate Recovery cultural communities. And if you're interested, please contact me and I'll be happy to connect you.
Thank you very much. Okay.
Thank you, ladies.
Mitchell.
Thank you. Thank you, ladies. As usual, we always run out of time. We'd like to certainly thank you for being a part of this program. And we have received so much good information on Celebrate Recovery. We'd like to thank you, Ms. Betty Williams, Ms. Sabrina Stolze, and Ms. Cheryl Luke for your participation and the good work you're doing with Celebrate Recovery. We cannot tell you how thankful we are that you're out there helping those of us who need to admit that we've got some addictions, we've got some hang-ups, we've got some hurts, and we've got some habits. And so we'd like to thank you all for creating something that allows people a safe space where they can address those issues. And until next time, for our audience of Forever Young, we'd like to say to you, thank you for tuning in today. And remember, Forever Young is our program where age is nothing but a number. Until next time, for Ms. Jean and I, and in his absence, David Linton, we'd like to say thanks again. We'll see you again soon. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.